Hello, my name is Dan Holme, and welcome to this session, Preparing for SharePoint 2013. During this session, I hope to share with you, both from an industry analyst, an IT, and a business perspective, what SharePoint 2013 means to you, and to help you understand what you can do to move forward in your SharePoint journey, whether you're currently using SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2007, or earlier versions of SharePoint. Before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Dan Holme. I'm an MVP in SharePoint Server, and before that was an MVP in Directory Services, Active Directory. I work for Intelliem, which is a boutique consulting company serving mostly Fortune caliber clientele, including NBC, for whom I'm the Microsoft Technologies consultant during the broadcast of the Olympic Games. I also write a number of books and articles, including the SharePoint 2010 Training Kit for Microsoft Press and a weekly column for SharePoint Pro Mag from Penton. When I'm not traveling the world, speaking at events, and working with customers, I'm lucky enough to live in beautiful Maui, Hawaii. So I thought I'd share a few pictures of what it looks like there, even though today's event is being broadcast from my comfortable hotel room in Melbourne, Australia. But the most important information on this slide is my contact information, and I highly encourage you to write it down and to reach out to me after this event, because I certainly hope that this is just the beginning of our conversation together. My job is to help you be successful with SharePoint, so please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything I can do to help you in that journey. You can find me by email, on Twitter, or on Facebook. So I look forward to chatting with you after this event as well. In order to understand why SharePoint 2013 is a significant release for your enterprise, you need to take a trip back in time into ancient history, to the year 2006 in fact, where we'll find that SharePoint 2010 is, well, so 2006. In 2006, Microsoft released Microsoft Office SharePoint Server 2007. The code was locked down, released to manufacture, and on its way to general availability. That's when the product team turned its attention towards developing the next version of SharePoint, which would become SharePoint Server 2010. Now let's look at the year 2006 in relation to some of the technological realities of today. Let's start with Facebook. In August of 2006, Facebook was not even publicly available. It was only available to high school and college students. It wasn't until September of 2006 that Facebook was made publicly available, and of course since then its utilization went through the roof. But in mid-2006, most of us hadn't even heard of Facebook. What about this device? Something that certainly changed the face of technology. Well, in 2006, the iPhone was only a twinkle in the eye for Steve Jobs and executives at Apple because it wasn't even announced and released until June of 2007. So, before the iPhone, before Facebook, before many of the things that affect us every single day today, that's the context in which Microsoft began to design SharePoint 2010. In the 5 years since Microsoft started to spec out SharePoint 2010, there have been a number of extraordinary and revolutionary trends. Today, people work very differently than they did in 2006 and 2007. They carry devices we could have never dreamed of. They're connected to the network and to each other in ways we never imagined. The cloud, which was something we talked about but was certainly not used heavily by business, has become a force to be reckoned with. And IT is under increasing amounts of pressure to control the distribution of information onto portable devices, into the cloud, and we're under increasing burdens of regulations that apply to information classes of all kinds. The world is very different today than it was when Microsoft began to spec out SharePoint 2010. In order to make an informed decision about SharePoint 2013 and your technology roadmap, you also have to take a look inside Microsoft. And Microsoft today is in many ways a very different company than it was just a few years ago. I, for one, have been flabbergasted by the scale of change that Microsoft's new product releases reflect. And out of this new Microsoft comes SharePoint 2013. SharePoint 2013 is of course part of the new Office, and the new Office is a cloud-first release. The revolutionary trends that we've talked about certainly define SharePoint 2013. And Microsoft's messaging about what SharePoint 2013 means and the value it offers focuses on each of these trends. I'd like to really drill down into a couple of key characteristics of SharePoint 2013 that you must consider as you make your technology decisions. The first is that SharePoint 2013 is, in effect, SharePoint for Office 365 version 2. Now, there was Business Productivity Online Services, or BPOS, that had SharePoint, but that was really more like Windows SharePoint Services plus publishing. SharePoint 2010, as part of Office 365, was really version 1 of SharePoint for the cloud. And Microsoft learned a lot by trying to scale that as a cloud service. They made significant revisions under the hood to ensure that SharePoint 2013 could scale effectively in the cloud. One of those major changes was the move towards moving application development and customization off-box. Microsoft makes it clear now that SharePoint 2013 is an application, not a platform. You should be developing your applications off-box, using whatever tools, languages, and platforms you choose, and connecting those applications as services into SharePoint. So Microsoft can have its own cloud. It can keep that cloud updated, performant, and scalable, while still allowing you to build customizations that deliver the business value you need, and to acquire those customizations from third parties. Luckily, Microsoft is pointing the direction to the future very clearly. Develop customizations off-box and expose those as services. But they're not preventing us from continuing to do things the way we've always done them. In SharePoint 2013 on-premise, you can still do full trust solutions. And in the cloud, as well as on-premise, you can use sandbox solutions as well as many of the new application models that I've been describing. So SharePoint 2013 doesn't prevent you from doing anything you would do in SharePoint 2010, but the direction is clear, so you should be making decisions wisely. It's not hard to imagine that in the next version of SharePoint, or sometime in the near future, sandbox solutions and even full trust solutions may no longer be supported. So try to start developing in the new application models as much as you possibly can to future-proof your customizations. Microsoft SharePoint 2013 is also very much an end-user release. It's a business value release. Microsoft has smoothed out a number of the rough edges of SharePoint 2013 that made adoption and training more difficult. The new version of SharePoint is significantly cleaner looking, more discoverable, and easier to use. Many people are asking, when should I deploy SharePoint 2013? I'm going to give you some guidance to the answer to that question, but first let me ask you, why wait? There are a couple of key considerations here, the most important of which is SharePoint 2013 was spec'd for today's world. The megatrends that influence us today, the way people work and behave, the devices they carry, the way they connect socially, the cloud, control, and big data, and other trends were not the reality in 2006 when Microsoft started to spec out SharePoint 2010. So if you're facing today's challenges, you need a platform built to address them. Also, don't wait for Service Pack 1. One of the most common things I hear from customers, and it pains me greatly, is we're going to wait for Service Pack 1. That used to be a relatively understandable way to think, because when Microsoft released a product, the world hadn't experienced it yet. We hadn't seen the real problems that would come up in production. And so there would be bugs, and Service Pack 1 would address those bugs in a way that made everyone feel that the product was really stable and ready for prime time. It's a different world today. The RTM quality for SharePoint is very, very high. Before you can even install the bits on your servers, there are going to be hundreds of millions of production users already using the code on Office 365. Microsoft manages that service. It feels the pain. It's already identified the problems and has fixed them. Now, I'm not, a starry-eyed optimist that thinks that the product is perfect. It's not. However, the quality issue that lies behind the desire to wait for Service Pack 1 is simply no longer a reality. There are going to be problems always. It is software, but we're at least at a Service Pack 1 quality level when you look at the RTM quality of SharePoint 2013. Another thing to realize is it is a versionless world now. Microsoft's made it clear the cloud will always be up to date with new business functionality released every 90 days. They haven't announced what they're doing with on-premise release cadence yet, but everyone's assuming it's going to be faster than it's been in the past, which means what exactly is Service Pack 1? That milestone has less meaning. When Microsoft releases Service Pack 1 for SharePoint 2013, it's very possible they might be rolling in functionality that's been added over time to Office 365. which means Service Pack 1 may be Service Pack 1 in some areas, but it's going to have new functionality that isn't at the Service Pack 1 level, but has already been tested on Office 365. So that milestone really doesn't mean anything anymore. And the longer you wait to deploy this technology that was built to address today's challenges, the more you're going to lose. Your business has problems that need to be solved. And what's going to happen if those problems can't be addressed by internal IT services? Your business customer now has an option to go straight to the cloud. And if your business customer goes to the cloud, they use a service that's not within your IT portfolio. It's not managed. It might be higher cost. It might be more risky. So it's important that IT starts to deliver more real-time business value because your business customer now does have an option. There's also a technical consideration related to the timing of your migration roadmap, and that is that upgrade, as we've known it, is dead. What do I mean by that? Well, there's no more in-place upgrade. You don't have the option of taking your 2010 farm, popping in the 2013 DVD, and upgrading it in place. Instead, the new upgrade model is that you create a new farm running SharePoint 2013, and then you attach your content databases to it. And in the process, those databases get upgraded. But even that process isn't the same because SharePoint 2013 supports backward compatibility. SharePoint 2013 actually includes the 2010 root folder, what we used to call the 14 hive. All of the features, the templates, and all of those functional aspects of 2010 are actually there in 2013. Plus, of course, the 2013 root folder, the new features and templates and such. The result of that is that SharePoint 2013 allows you to continue using your 2010 approaches as well as the new 2013 approaches. You can use and build new 2010 workflows along with 2013 workflows. You can use SharePoint 2010 customization models, including full trust and sandbox solutions, as well as the new SharePoint 2013 app models. In fact, what this allows you to do is a technical feature called deferred site upgrades. Now follow me along with this. You install a new farm and you attach your content database from your 2010 farm to your 2013 farm. That content database is upgraded, but the site collection remains at a 2010 site collection level. It uses that 2010 root folder that we talked about. So all of your old functionality and user interface remain as if it's a 2010 site collection. Now this is very different than visual upgrade was in SharePoint 2010. In SharePoint 2010, you could attach a 2007 content database, but that database was fully upgraded. It was in fact a 2010 site collection, but it used a 2007 master page so that it looked like a 2007 site. Now, in SharePoint 2013, your site really is a 2010 site. It's not just a master page, it is using the 2010 hive and templates and features. So your old workloads and customizations will continue to work. You attach that old content database and everything works the way it always did. When you're ready to migrate that site to a 2013 site collection, you can do an evaluation. SharePoint basically creates a copy of the 2010 site with a unique URL. The 2010 site continues to run on its original URL. You make sure that everything is the way you want it to be on the new site collection, and then you throw the switch and you upgrade the actual site to 2013. So in theory, this allows you to attach your 2010 content databases to a 2013 farm and everything will just work. Now here's where I'm going to throw a caveat into the mix. The world hasn't had enough experience with this upgrade process to guarantee that it's going to work 100% of the time. I think, and my experience is so far, it's going to work most of the time, maybe even at least 80% of the time, but we don't have quite enough real-world experience to guarantee that it's going to work all the time. And therefore, like always, you should plan and test your upgrades. But the compatibility problems are certainly significantly reduced, and you're much more likely to be able to have a smoother upgrade to SharePoint 2013 than we've had to any product in the past. What this also allows you to do is workload-based migration. You're going to have a new 2013 farm anyway, so you create a 2013 farm and you just add new workloads onto the new platform. You no longer have to think about upgrade as this giant enterprise-wide big upgrade project. In fact, those kinds of projects really provide very low business value because users on the old platform are using something that works. Just upgrading it to a new platform doesn't necessarily add business value unless the new platform adds capabilities that the old platform didn't have. You're also going to have to look at third-party migration tools in many scenarios. While the content database attach and deferred site upgrade process does work, the reality is that many organizations want to do even a more granular migration. They may want to restructure sites and content, meaning move subsites up to new site collections, change URLs, etc., and third-party tools are going to be necessary to do that. Also, in many situations, you want to align migration and business processes. So there might be workflows and other business processes that you need to support in your migration technology, and third-party migration tools will help you do that. So let me give you a roadmap to SharePoint 2013 and how I see SharePoint 2013 being effectively deployed in many organizations. How do you move forward with SharePoint 2013? Well, my bottom line guidance is deploy it as soon as you can. Deploy 2013 into your service portfolio. So if right now your service portfolio includes SharePoint 2010, deploy SharePoint 2013. And then start thinking about, or along the way, start thinking about what you should be moving to that new element of your technology portfolio. I highly recommend, earlier rather than later, deploying SharePoint 2013 Service Farm. That is a farm that's running search, metadata, user profiles, and business data connectivity. Those services can actually be consumed by your down-level 2010 farms. So you can be running all of your services on your new 2013 farm, and your 2010 farm can continue to consume those services. In the meantime, that new service farm delivers new features. For example, you might put your Enterprise Search Center on your new 2013 farm, which gives you all the new bells and whistles and capabilities of SharePoint 2013 Search. You might choose to create a SharePoint 2013 farm for My Sites so that you get all the new social capabilities in SharePoint 2013. You also should consider sooner rather than later deploying an Office Web Apps farm to support whatever content you're moving into 2013. 2013 Office Web Apps cannot be consumed by 2010 farms, but they can support all of your 2013 farms along with Exchange and Link 2013. So we have our 2013 service, and we move things like our services and potential elements like a Search Center or My Sites into that service farm. Next, we start delivering innovative solutions to drive business value. This is where IT needs to be. IT shouldn't be upgrading old technologies. Instead, they should be providing the right platform for the right workload. So when a new workload is proposed, decide where it belongs. Does it belong on 2010, or will it benefit from the new features of 2013? 2013 is much more usable and discoverable than 2010 was, at almost every level, including new team sites. So my guess is you'll probably find that almost every new workload really should be put onto 2013. Because again, 2013 will allow you to do everything you did in 2010, just a little bit better, a little bit more usable. So deploy your new workloads to 2010 or 2013, foundation or server, on-premise or cloud, as each workload warrants. Please, please, please don't deploy workloads on 2010 that Microsoft treated as big bets in the release of 2013. Microsoft invested heavily in several workloads, and those new workloads feature significant improvements in a feature set and manageability perspective. Mobile, for example. If you're doing anything that requires access from mobile devices or other platforms, SharePoint 2013 is going to give you much more capability than 2010. Social networking, much better in 2013. Search, significantly improved with the integration of the capabilities of what used to be Fast and SharePoint Search into a single platform. Web content management, much better in 2013. In fact, there wasn't much improvement from 2007 to 2010, but now there's a big jump in 2013. So, add your big bet workloads like social, search, WCM, or mobile on your new 2013 service element. If you're going to deploy one of those big bet workloads and you do it on 2010, you're guaranteeing yourself problems. You're fighting battles that Microsoft has already solved with 2013. So you're guaranteeing risk, pain, increased cost, or even business failure of those old workloads. Last but not least, migrate legacy solutions over time. So if you've got a mixed platform, little by little, you can workload by workload, you can decide what warrants moving into the new environment. This is what I call a truly hybrid service. It's not just a mix of cloud and on-prem, of Office 365 and on-premise farms. It's a mix of 2010 and 2013, foundation and server, separate farms to support specific workloads. It's a very distributed architecture that allows you to support each new workload that your business throws at you. What if you're in SharePoint 2007? Most of my customers who are in 2007 are giving very strong thought to skipping 2010 altogether, and that is certainly my guidance to you. The current needs that you're supporting on your 2007 farm will migrate to 2013 just as well as they would migrate to 2010. There's nothing you can do with 2010 that you can't do a little or even much better in 2013. But by moving to 2013, you're going to be able to support your future needs, because the odds are your business is going to require functionality supported only by 2013, including those big bet workloads of social, search, WCM, and BI, and access across browsers, platforms, and devices. You also have to consider training. If you move users from 2007 to 2010, that's going to require training, a significant amount of training, in fact, because there are rough edges in discoverability and there's gaps in usability that will require more training going from 2007 to 2010 than from 2007 to 2013. In addition, you'll also end up training users twice. You're going to have to train them how to use 2010, and then when you do finally migrate to 2013, you're going to have to train them again because the UI and the UX is quite different. If you are going to migrate from 2007 directly to 2013, there are a couple of things to keep in mind from a technical perspective. The first of which is the hard part of migration is the evaluation of your 2007 customizations. Whether you're going to 2010 or to 2013, you're going to have customizations that you built in 2007 that are simply not compatible. When you evaluate the compatibility and make them and remediate any problems to allow you to migrate to 2010, those same remediations will allow you to migrate directly to 2013. It's not the technology platform you're going to that's the challenge. It's the mess you've got in your current environment. Another technical consideration is that there is no direct migration path or upgrade path from 2007 to 2013. You're either going to have to go through 2010, meaning you upgrade first to 2010 and then again to 2013, a two-hop migration method, or you're going to need to turn to third-party migration tools. And every customer that I've seen in this boat really should be using third-party migration tools, not because it's simpler, which it is, but because they've done things in 2007 that they simply wouldn't do the same way in 2013. They would change their architecture. They would move content from point A to point B, restructure their sites and site collections. And in order to do those kinds of things, as well as to align the migration to business process so that the right site collection is migrated at the right time for training purposes, you're going to need to use third-party tools to do that. SharePoint 2013 offers some important new functionality that you should prepare for whether you're currently using SharePoint 2010 or SharePoint 2007. One of the most significant additions is the new app model, where reusable functionality is packaged as an app and plugged into a site. Each app creates a unique domain or FQDN, and in order to prepare for apps, first you have to create a top-level domain for that app domain. Now, that app domain should be a unique domain, for example, contosoapps.com. It should not be a subdomain such as apps.contoso.com. After you've procured the domain name, you then go to DNS and configure a forward lookup zone for that app domain and create a wildcard CNAME alias pointing to the FQDN, the fully qualified domain name, of your SharePoint server or load balancer, the IP address of your farm. So, for example, we'd create a CNAME for star.contosoapps.com that points to sharepointfarm.contoso.com. Next, we go to SharePoint. And in SharePoint, we create a web application bound to the IP address with no host header. This is basically just a receiver for inbound requests for apps. We then configure the subscription setting service, the app management service, and the app URL prefix. Now, these steps go well beyond the scope of this session. These are things you would do when you're really ready to start running apps, and TechNet has tons of information about those three steps. But one of the most important things to know that definitely does require some preparation and planning is that as apps work, there are tokens being passed around using what's called OAuth 2.0. So each user and each app generates a unique token. you'll end up with lots and lots and lots of tokens. Now, the problem with those tokens is that they're included in the HTTP request packet. And theoretically, those tokens could be grabbed from the network and replayed for malicious purposes. So, to secure your environment for apps, it's time to use SSL. And if you're not using SSL already, this requires some planning. And among the most important planning steps is to procure a wildcard SSL certificate. A wildcard SSL certificate would be for example, star.contoswaps.com. It's a single certificate that provides for multiple subdomains within that wildcard. And each app does create a unique domain, so as long as you're going to have more than about 5 apps, you'll need a wildcard SSL certificate. In SharePoint 2013, search has been rebuilt from the ground up. It's now a unified architecture, and there's no more separate product or farm for FAST. SharePoint 2013 Search is also more than just enterprise search. It's a core service supporting much of the valuable SharePoint 2013 functionality, including analytics, e-discovery, even navigation and web content management. All of those require SharePoint 2013 Search to work. Therefore, you're not going to want to live without SharePoint Search. If you don't have SharePoint Search in place, it's going to be a part of your future. What if, however, you already have a different platform for enterprise search, like Google Search or Autonomy or something like that? Well, it's time to think about retiring that product, because if you're going to have SharePoint 2013 Search in place, why would you want to pay for anything else? Or if you have real business reasons to keep those legacy platforms as your enterprise search platform, you'll want to consider how you're going to coexist. SharePoint Search will be valuable to power SharePoint functionality, so you can decide which of your search platforms index and provide query services for SharePoint and which provide enterprise search functionality. So in other words, at a bare minimum, SharePoint Search will be at the core of SharePoint functionality, but users might use your other enterprise search technology for their enterprise search. A lot of my customers complain that they started using SharePoint Search and then turn it off because, well, SharePoint started exposing all kinds of information that they didn't want users to see. Now, SharePoint indexing respects permissions, so that's not a technical problem. It's a reflection of the fact that security was often very weak on the content in the first place. It was just that the content was so hard to find that no one could find it. So, for example, if you index file shares with poor permissions, well, users are going to see things they shouldn't have access to, not because it's SharePoint's fault, but because the permissions were bad. So, start planning for how to address those kinds of problems. Fix permissions or remove those content search sources altogether so that SharePoint Search can run but won't cause those kinds of side effects that might be undesirable. We've talked about what makes 2013 important for today's enterprise. We've looked at the business, the roadmap, and the technology to prepare for SharePoint 2013. As you move towards SharePoint 2013, there's one more thing that needs to be transformed, and that is IT itself. Spend some time with your development team mastering the new SharePoint 2013 application development, the cloud app model, web standards, platform enhancements, and tools. And MSDN is of course the perfect place to start learning about application development in SharePoint 2013. Also, transform your IT department. Start moving away as much as you can from being a provider of plumbing to being a provider of business value. Figure out what it takes to transform your processes and your people so that you can deliver business value workload by workload. Make informed decisions about where each workload should be hosted within your technology portfolio, whether on 2007, 2010, or 2013, in the cloud or on-premise, and improve your governance. And if you're looking to improve the governance of your SharePoint service or of your IT as an organization as a whole, I'll point you to a couple of videos I've created that you can download and watch for free with your team, as well as my email address, as I'm certainly able to help guide you in your efforts to align SharePoint with your corporate strategy and implement governance to support SharePoint. And with that, I'd like to thank you for attending today's session. As we say in Maui, mahalo. Make sure to stay in touch with through email, Facebook, or Twitter, and I look forward to chatting with you after today and carrying this conversation forward. I'd also like to extend a personal invitation to you to join me and my colleagues at the European SharePoint Conference February 4th to 7th in beautiful Copenhagen, Denmark. You can learn more at www.sharepointeurope.com. Until I see you in Copenhagen, ahui ho from beautiful Hawaii.
We hope you enjoyed this preview session. The full session will be presented at the European SharePoint Conference in Copenhagen on the 4th to the 7th of February 2013. We hope you can join us there. Visit our website for the full lineup of amazing conference speakers and to avail of our discounted early booking price of only €895, which ends on the 30th of November. Remember to join the conversation today using our Twitter hashtag for the conference, ESPC13. Thank you.